Welcome to Conversation with a Conjuror. With us today is Paul Gordon. I'm Daniel Rivington. This is Alex Johnson. Let's get to it.
And I went into the magic shop as a young man and I asked for the famous 4-ace trick, and he gave me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cards. I said, why have you given me 5 cards? He said, well, these ones here are the instructions. And they are the instructions. And they say, if you snap your finger like that, the first ace here will turn face up. There's the ace of clubs. He said the second one will follow, and there is the ace of hearts. Club and heart already face up. The next one is the ace of spades. And there is the ace of spades. Now the last one, do you remember what the last one will be? Well, we know it's not the spade, heart or club. It therefore must be this one here, the diamond. He then also said to me, can you see something on the bottom of the cards here, the instructions? It says, do you remember the colour of the backs? Yeah? Well, it says blue, but actually, if you watch closely, you're only 25% correct.
Paul Gordon is a close-up magician, entertainer, lecturer, creator, publisher and singer. Paul was my first ever magic lecture. I don't know if you know that, Paul, but it was my first ever magic lecture when I came down.
I didn't know that, no.
He captivated my imagination, changed my perceptions about what a magician could be. He's inspired my friends as magicians, and he's always happy to help magicians become a better version of themselves. Thanks for coming, Paul. It's great to have you on.
Thank you for those very kind words, and I didn't know that you saw me and I inspired you. Normally people see me for the first time and they get out of the business.
No, it was especially the way you sort of have banter with people, you know, have like a bit of a laugh.
Yeah.
And that actually leads on to one of my questions. I noticed that you have playful jokes with the audience. Like with me in particular, you referred to me as being a little bit intimidating, and you know, because I'm 6'3" and I'm not exactly the smallest guy. You think that helps build a rapport with sort of layman spectators, people that you're performing for?
I really do, and I think I always think that if there's a big guy in the audience, he likes to be known as the big guy. You know, if he's tall or intimidating, you know, we all have things about us, and if somebody recognizes it and laughs along with you about it, I think you can get some good banter going, some good fun going, because in my opinion, a lot of the card magicians I've seen over the years are a little bit serious about it and a little bit humorless, and I've always tried to be, you know, full of fun. I muck around with people. As long as the focus stays with the magic and I can keep the energy and the pace of the magic going, I think it's also nice to be able to mess around with people so that you're making it a performance with people as opposed to performing at them.
Right. That's a good piece of insight there, though. You know, it's like kind of like addressing the elephant in the room. And it's kind of like something people might always be thinking, but then if you go ahead and bring that out, you know, like, I guess that can incite laughter and kind of put people at ease.
Yeah, I mean, you know, one of the little, I use lots of lines which I've kind of either come up with or I've sort of pinched or whatever it may be in a nice way. But one of them is, you know, if I'm working, there's a big guy next door to me standing there. Often I'll say something like, you know, if anything kicks off tonight, mate, I'm going to be on your side. You know, so
I think you said that about me.
Oh, did I? Yeah.
And it immediately won him over.
And it does it. You know, you're there to win people over and make them feel at ease. Because I know what it's like you know, in Daniel's position when you go into a club for the first time or into an audience. And I remember this from being a kid. There's an intimidation that if somebody picks on you or asks you to help and they ask you to do lots of things, you're immediately in a position of having to remember stuff, and I've never done that. So I say to people, look at the card. If you forget it, don't worry. We'll get back to it. You know, don't. You know. So I want people to be able to relax, as opposed to sitting like that all nervous. I want people to be able to kind of go,
yeah,
we're in for a good time. The guy's nice. He's going to look after us. We'll see some good magic, but he's not going to intimidate us or be rude to us.
That's a really good piece of advice.
Yeah.
Thanks for answering that. The Gold Dust collection is one of the. It's like a treasure trove of awesome tricks. Are you in the process of writing any new books?
Well, I mean, I wrote, I don't know if you've got them, but 4 years ago I wrote Quidnunc, and then 2 years ago Article 52. So they're the two new books. Do you have those, Daniel?
I borrowed Quidnunc for a while,
Right.
and and there's actually one of the tricks that I do in my wedding act in there, and I can't remember the name exactly. I think diminishing, not likely.
No, that's in Gold Dust.
Oh, is that Gold Dust? Sorry. Yeah, that's one of my favourite tricks to do.
But you know, I mean, like I said, I'm not here to plug anything, but you know, if you're interested in these books, anybody watching, get them sooner than later, because when they're out of print, they are out of print. And you know, like I was saying to Alex at the beginning before we pushed the record button, you know, they're nice looking books and they are full of workable, doable things. And also, because I'm dyslexic, I understand what it's like to struggle reading. So I write in a conversational manner. So most of my routines are described in 1 or 2 pages at most, maybe 3 pages at most. But I write as if you're sitting there with me and I'm teaching you.
We were talking with Nathan Lindley yesterday. We had him on the podcast, and he's a fantastic mentalist. And we're talking about struggling to read from books. I struggle to read from books because I've got the attention span of a gnat. He has dyslexia, so we both struggle to read from books. I know you've catered to both in some respects because you released the Gold Dust DVD collection.
Yeah.
What benefits do you think that the person at home gets from reading from a book rather than from seeing the DVD?
I think the big benefit is this is a very controversial subject in magic because people think you're having a dig if you say something to the opposite to what they think. But you know, I produce DVDs, and I've done it because it gives a visual opportunity for people to see stuff. But really, if you buy a book, I don't describe all the presentation in my books. I describe little bits. But I'm describing the nuts and bolts, because if you read a book, you have to then use your imagination and your performance style from reading it. But if you only learn magic from videos and DVDs and video downloads, as much as you try, you cannot help but start copying the performer that you're learning from. And that's the problem. You know, this is a funny little vignette for you both. This goes back 40 odd years. And when I was about 15 years old, videos started to make their first appearance in magic, in the magic world. And one of the first videos was the Slidini video. And nobody had ever seen a magic video before that. So bear that in mind, videos were new. And at the next convention, there were lots of English boys of my age going around the convention saying, "Hey, watch, I take it the coiner. You watch it the coiner." Because they'd mimicked what they saw Slidini do, and I'm sure they didn't mean to impersonate him, but there must have been an assumption that the only way you can do this magic is, you know, by doing it as he does it. And that was the first time I think I'd ever seen anything like that. And so I think if you read a book, you're getting the nuts and bolts of the trick, and you put your stamp on it. And your stamp may be comedic or serious, whatever it may be, but it'll be you.
That's fantastic. I'd never thought of it like that before.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to butt into the question, but another point is, and I firmly believe that when I perform, I look at myself and try and, you know, when I was younger, imagine what I would look like to the audience. And I think I probably look like middle management, like I probably work in Halfords, or I might work in Walmart or something like that, or in the local bank. Now, if I was tall, slim and elegant, I might be able to pull off the Guy Hollingworth approach. If I was short, fat and hairy, I guess comedy might be the best route for me. So I think, you know, you start looking at the way you are and the way people perceive you and the kind of magic that you like, and you can start blending it into a style, you know?
Quidnunc is like an unusual name for a book. Where did that name come from?
Quidnunc is Latin. When I was a young lad, age 7, I used to go to a boarding school, and Latin was taught at the boarding school. And the school magazine was called Quidnunc. And Quidnunc means what's next, what's new, what's happening. And so when I was thinking of a title for a book, I suddenly thought of Quidnunc, and that's how it came about.
Fair enough. You have spoken about your mentors before, specifically Harry Lorraine. What benefits would you take from having a mentor, and who were your mentors when you were first starting magic and becoming Paul Gordon?
I didn't really have many mentors because I lived in the middle of nowhere, and so again, I don't want to sound like an old fart, but I am an old fart, and when I was young, there was no internet, no videos. The only books I knew about were ones in the local library, so I had to walk 5 miles to the library to get these books out, and it was the same 5 books I saw for years and years and years. So I kind of learnt magic without having anybody to help me along until 1976. I joined the local magic club, and the first thing I remember thinking in a derogatory way that some of these people were teaching me stuff badly because they weren't very good at it. So I then had to kind of be very strong-willed to start thinking about things for myself, and that's how I started creating stuff, because I couldn't do certain moves, and it wasn't until probably the early 80s that I started sort of meeting other magicians, and then started becoming part of a fraternity or a circuit in those days.
So you said that you've written 48 books, and you started focusing on card magic about 44 years ago, and you said it takes about a year to a year and a half to write a book. So at some point, first question is, when did you write your first book, and what's the most amount that you've written in a single year?
Well, the first booklet I wrote was in 1987, I think it was. That's 33 years ago. I mean, they're not all as big as these books I'm showing you here. So some of the books I've written are little booklets, maybe 20 or 30 pages, and I can write those maybe in a month or so. But the big books like Gold Dust, as Daniel knows, it's twice the size of these books here. It's a big book, and it took about 70% of it was the best of stuff that had come prior, and 30% of the book was new stuff at that time. And I started writing that in 2010, and it took me until the end of 2012 to complete it. And it was the hardest thing I've ever done, because there's so much proofreading, so much layout to be done, so many photographs to be taken, and then proofreading again and again and again.
Have you always self-published? I would imagine, self-publishing back in the 80s would have been a much different process than, nowadays with computers.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, this is a funny story for you both. I mean, again, it makes me sound ancient, but I didn't have a computer when I started out. The only thing I had that I could afford was something called a star writer. And this star writer was like an old-fashioned typewriter, and on the top of it you had one line of old-fashioned LED text. So you could see one line that you were writing, and then when you were happy with what you'd written, you pushed the print button and one page would come out. But you couldn't save the page, really, because in those days it was all floppy disk, which was 1.5 megabytes of memory. I mean, that's extraordinary, isn't it? You think of 1.5 megabytes of memory. So then I printed all the pages out. I then literally cut and paste. So you cut all the white area off around the border, paste it to a master sheet, and then you paste on using Pritt stick, or spray mount rather, the header, the footer, the page numbers, the illustrations. I mean, talk about laborious.
Mm-hmm.
It was really hard.
Is there any specific reason why you've always wanted to self-publish and not actually go through a publisher?
Yeah, financial. I had an offer from back in the mid-80s, I had an offer from a well-known American magic book publisher. I won't say who they are, but anyway. And the offer for, at that time, all the work I had done was so pathetically low, I thought it was tempting to take it, but maybe I should try and do it myself. So I took a bank loan, much to my first wife's disgust. I took a massive bank loan. I took a huge risk, and it paid off.
Wow.
It could have gone the other way.
I think I remember reading somewhere that usually for like, publishing advances is only like $25,000 or something, I think.
Well, not even. Well, that's for a major book.
Yeah.
In the magic world, I've known some magic authors sell their soul for about $1,000.
Wow. Just to get their name out there and hope that it can turn into something else.
I mean, sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But if you put all your eggs in one basket and you turn up with £1,000, it's not going to last you long. $1,000, it won't last you long.
So let me ask you this: how many hours a day do you practice?
Well, I not so much anymore. I'm probably getting a bit lazy, but I used to practice so much so that my parents had to drag me away from the cards and the books and almost force me to go to bed. And I learned a long time ago, and this was my dad who said, if you want to do this thing right, turn off the TV and knuckle down, get on with it. Because the TV, you can spend hours watching rubbish and you'll never get anywhere.
Yep, it's
It's
true.
just rubbish. Yeah.
So
And it's tempting, isn't it? It's like computers these days. It's so tempting to sit at the laptop or the tablet or the phone or watch your favorite soap opera or drama or TV program. But, you'll never get anywhere with magic if you do that.
how do you balance your time, if you're writing a new book and you're performing and you said seldomly practicing, how do you balance and manage your time? Do you use a schedule? Do you use a planner, or do you just been doing it for so long you just kind of have a routine?
Yeah, I'm very focused, and I'm one of these weird people. You don't meet many people like this anymore, but I normally wake up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. I go to bed about 10 o'clock at night,
Okay.
but I've got so many hours in the day to get on with stuff. And normally between 4 or 5 in the morning and say most people getting up between about 8 or 9, I can get so much work done in those quiet periods, which gives me more time for the day to relax, really. But if you do all your work in the daytime and the phones are ringing and the emails are coming through and the garden is nice and lunch needs to be cooked or eaten,
But you also said you live a pretty healthy lifestyle with exercise and cycling, and you've been vegan.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's the old thing is, if you want a job done, give it to a busy person. And I am one of those kind of busy people that gets on. I'm not a procrastinator. I kind of get on with stuff.
I don't think that maybe I mentioned it. Maybe I think I did mention it, but you've written 48 books, correct?
Yeah, that's a lot.
That's a very prolific, writer.
Quite an achievement. Do you have any boxes left unchecked? Do you have any anything that you're striving towards?
Oh, do you know what? I'm dreadfully unambitious. That may sound very contradictory to what I've just said to you, but I'm not remotely competitive. I've never been competitive in anything at all. Most of the things I've done is probably out of necessity to make a living. So I don't have many goals really. No, I don't really. I'm one of those people that I'm very happy with what I've got at the moment I'm in. The thing I love mostly is meeting magicians, people like yourself, Daniel, when I've met you. Alex, it'd be nice to meet you in person one day. I love conversations outside of magic. I don't need to talk about magic all the time. People like in the club, in your club, people like Francesco and James and Kev, all nice people, and I like meeting nice people. I'm happy with that.
We actually had Franco on a few days ago.
Oh, yeah.
Him and because he does a double act with Adam Casper.
Yeah.
And we had them talking with us. Maybe Sunday, was it? I can't even remember now.
Yeah.
We've done quite a few in the last.
This is episode 11.
Oh, is it? Wow.
Yeah, we've been doing it for what, 3 weeks?
Yeah.
3.5 weeks.
Something like that.
Do you have any pet peeves? Do you have any pet peeves when you see other magicians performing?
I do actually, and they're not nasty ones, but they're just. I wish sometimes that people would just work harder at what they do. I don't like when people. I've been to clubs where somebody stands up and says, "Let me show you something I learnt this afternoon." I'd rather them say, "Let me show you something I learnt last year, and I've been working on for a year."
Yeah. It's an instant gratification, though, you know.
Yeah.
It's like you watch a YouTube video, it's like, oh, I can do this, and you immediately try to go out and perform it, and you goof it up.
I know, and it's pain. You know, my wife, who's just a wonderful critic, she cannot stand bad magic, and she sees a lot of it because she goes with me to conventions and all these things, and it's embarrassing, really, when somebody does something bad. It's really embarrassing, and you know, you don't go to opera clubs and somebody sing off key. You don't go to ballet classes and somebody can't do a pirouette. But in magic, it seems to be okay to be bad.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of people's perspective is, you know, do a lot of bad magic until you finally figure it out and you get good as far as, you know, learning how to work with people and, you know, kind of putting 2 and 2 together. But yeah,
Well,
I'd
that's
agree
okay.
with
You know, everybody has to start somewhere, but you don't have to show people your early efforts. Why not wait until you've got it right and then show them, and then your reputation will build, as opposed to your reputation can only go downhill if people see you be bad all the time.
Yeah,
So,
that's a good point.
So let's say somebody showed you a really bad trick. Would you be polite or would you rip them apart?
I'd be very polite.
He's friends with you, Dan. He has to be polite.
Yeah. I've never ripped anybody apart. I just think it's unpleasant and rude. If somebody asked me their advice, I might just say, well, maybe you could work a little bit on that, or maybe that a little bit there, blah, blah, blah. But I've seen magicians rip people apart, and they leave the business, and I think it's cruel to do that. It doesn't do anybody any good whatsoever. It's not constructive, and it's rather unpleasant.
But, you know, it's nowhere near as bad as having, you know, like say you have a child or something, they want to learn how to play a musical instrument. And so then you're stuck with them playing it, and it's really bad. At least magic is, you know, kind of quiet.
Well, yeah, that's a very good observation, Alex. And yeah, I've seen it before where somebody, you know, my nieces over the years, and they say, I'm going to take up the flute. And they pick up the flute, and they go...
At least it's not the bagpipe.
Oh my God. The bagpipes, even when they're played properly, are annoying.
I actually used to have a bagpipe once upon a time. I had this grand fantasy I was going to, you know, play a bagpipe out in the park, and like it was one of those cheap ones, and it just like a big old windbag.
Speaking of
What
music,
do you call 1,000 bagpipes at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean? A good start.
Yeah, good start.
While we're on the subject of music, something must be on my mind.
I've got a feeling.
Yeah, you got a feeling. You perform is quite often with a big band, or what would you say the difference between that and performing magic is? And do you get booked for the same gig? Maybe for example, to do close up and the singing on stage and stuff.
Yeah, I did when I was younger, Daniel. But the problem with that is that if you do a 2-hour gig around the tables, and like me, you're talking non-stop, by the time you get up to sing, you've lost your voice. And that seemed to be okay when I was in my 20s and 30s, but it's not okay anymore. So I keep them separately. And the singing is a wonderful. I love it dearly. I don't do enough of it, and I think what with coronavirus, I'll probably never do it again. I think it's going to be very difficult for lots of people. But excuse me.
We'll do a duet right now. I'll be Dean Martin, and you can be Frank. You do swing music though, don't you?
It is all swing music. Swing,
and I'm a big fan of swing myself. I don't know if you know that.
Oh, I didn't know.
I mean, I was in a heavy metal band as well. Don't get me wrong. I listen to all kinds of music, but yeah, I'm a massive Dean Martin fan. Not just massive as in girth, but I'm a huge Dean Martin fan.
I saw Dean Martin, Daniel. I saw Dean Martin in concert in 1983.
Wow. And what kind of stuff was he doing? The Rat Pack stuff?
No, no, not really. He was just doing Little Old Wine Drinker Me and Pennies from Heaven, that kind of stuff. And Sinatra, who's my hero, I saw Sinatra 18 times in concert. 18.
Wow.
And he was just brilliant all the way through those years. He was just absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, he had some of the better songs, really, didn't he? Sinatra. He had, I mean, I played When I'm Driving, Come Fly With Me, and I was never really a fan of My Way, but I really like, Fly Me to the Moon, Come Fly With Me, Brazil.
Oh yeah,
Chicago. Just so many brilliant songs. Do you listen to any of that, Alex?
I mean, I don't really, listen to music very much, just because I'm, always trying to hustle,
Movies and stuff. Yeah, Alex makes movies. He's working on a thing called Pig Lady at the moment.
Oh right.
Yeah.
Which is going to be like a sort of a slasher movie, isn't it?
Yep. It's a feature-length horror movie. We just we ended up raising about $22,000 on Kickstarter, and we're about to launch another campaign on Indiegogo for more crowdfunding.
Oh, fantastic! I'm a horror fan.
I've watched too many horror movies the past couple of years.
It can get you sometimes.
What's your favorite type of horror movie, Paul?
Well, I like all sorts of things. I like Gothic horror, going back to when I was a kid. The American Universal films, and then the 1950s Hammer horror films. In the 70s, I grew up with things like Exorcist, the original Exorcist.
Yeah, head spinning round and puking and stuff.
I don't think Exorcist has ever been beaten. I think it's just brilliant. It's such a good film.
I really like the Omen from that time period.
And the Omen.
And the Omen 2.
And Omen 2, yeah. Omen 1 and Omen 2. Omen 3 is a bit lame. But Omen, I met some of the guys who were part of the film for that, because they filmed it not far from where I live in Guildford, which is just up the road here. The church in Omen, the church was filmed near here. And at that time, they were doing some interviews, and I met some of them, and it was fascinating stories about the whole thing and how it came about, and so I like that kind of stuff. And then later on, I quite like things like The Conjuring and so on, but I just find a lot of them a little bit predictable. I kind of know where they're going and all that,
Paul, have you kept a single copy of every single book you've ever published?
Oh, I have, and I've numbered them and dated them so that when I die, somebody can make some money out of me.
That's genius.
The grandchildren,
Yeah.
They're in a bottom drawer here. I'll just hang on a second.
Yeah.
Stay there. This is not a plug because these are all out of print.
Mm-hmm.
Where are we? Daniel's fiddling with his cards.
Yeah.
No, I just can't help myself, can I?
I'll just not look. Can you see this?
Yeah. The camera's been a little bit choppy. If you can hold it slowly, please.
Oh, there's another. There's another. This is a biography I did about a magician.
Which magician?
Edward George Brown from he's 100 years ago. Very, very clever magician. There's me. There's a young me.
Oh yeah, Protean card magic.
Yeah. There's another one. I won't bore you with any more, but there's loads of them.
Yeah. I mean, it's awesome.
There's a lot of magic there. And do you want to, I'll show you one that took a long time. Look at this.
It looks like a dictionary.
Isn't it? That's leather bound, and that's a collection of books. And that's a £500 book. That.
So if anyone breaks into the house, that's the thing you grab.
This is the one to get. This is the one.
Do your books ever, come up, like for resale anywhere? Like, and maybe in rare bookstores or anything?
Yeah, I think they do. I mean, there's some. I've seen some eBay and Amazon and ABE books, Abe books.
Yeah. Okay.
Now,
Get passed around on Magic Markets on Facebook as well.
Yeah, I recommend if anybody's got something like gold dust, is to not to sell it, because when they're gone, they're gone. And I know Daniel knows some magicians who sold their books of mine, and then they then spend years trying to get them back again.
Yeah, and I think pretty much at least 50% of the people from my magic circle, the Leeds Magic Circle, perform at least one of your tricks. And
Nice.
a few of the guys, like the guys that you mentioned before, James, Franco, and Kev, are real big fans of yours, aren't they? So they've probably got quite a collection of books in between them. And
that's nice, isn't it?
I was going to ask you, what's the best advice you've ever received as a magician?
Give up and retire. Get out of the business. The best advice I've received. The best advice I've received, which is advice I give to others, a suggestion I give to others, is if you want to do this professionally, the best advice is to work as hard as you can when you're younger, get as much money as you can, buy the house you want, don't blow it on silly things, gadgets and gizmos and flash cars. Get yourself a nice property and save so that you can retire when you want to retire, and that you don't have to still go around conventions boring the pants off people when you're 90 years old.
Fair enough.
That's good advice.
Because I'd be horrified if somebody said one day, "There's Paul Gordon. He used to be pretty good."
Oh man, yeah.
That stage. I'd like to be able to. What I want to be able to do is to maybe retire in a way that I can just go to conventions and enjoy it without having to work.
Yeah.
Do you know? I'm sorry, just one more question. Do you know of any other magicians that have written as many books as you have?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Ed Marlowe, I guess. Harry Lorraine's written loads. Back in the day, people like Professor Hoffman in the 19th century, he was knocking out books by the bucket load. But I am prolific with it because I love what I do. I like to, I like the whole business. I like it all, and I don't do it for ego reasons. I don't need the ego boost from anybody. I do it because I think I like the magic,
And I guess that's kind of shows to make it stick.
It sort of leads me on to one of the questions I've got written down. What you said before about wanting to be able to retire at some point and having like a nice nest egg set up and stuff. We're in uncertain times right now. Where do you think the industry is going to go, and how do you think it's going to develop from after the pandemic?
Oh, very good question. These are good questions from both of you. These are good questions that nobody else has kind of brought up in all the interviews I've been doing in the last couple of months. But I think, I don't think it's going to be good. I mean, I don't think anybody really knows, but I think Alex may not know this, but in this country we're starting to ease the restrictions, which I don't think is a good thing because there's no cure. The vaccine hasn't been created yet. And if it's a second wave, it'll be worse than the first wave, because it always is with these things. So I think magic I think it's going to suffer, and I feel dreadfully sorry for young magicians who started out last year hoping to make their way in this business. I feel dreadfully sad for their position, and it's hard for them. I don't know what's going to happen.
Especially if they're using magic as their sole source of income. And they've not maybe, like, I'm sure people who have published stuff are still making some amount of sales and stuff, but people who are relying on gigs and events and stuff, I mean, that that's just dried up all in an instant, just like that.
It's all gone. I mean, you know, I'm very fortunate that my books and DVDs and tricks and downloads and so on, they've actually done better because of the coronavirus.
Everyone's stuck inside.
Yeah, they're all stuck inside with something to do. But I lost all the lectures. I had lots of trips booked, so I lost all the lectures and the flights and the hotels and blah blah blah. But gigs wise, I've done 2 or 3 gigs on Zoom, and I've not particularly enjoyed it because there's no interaction. You can't, you know, there's no feedback, and if there is feedback, it's always delayed. I told a joke a few days back on. There was about 20 guys watching me, and I just told a joke, and then one by one they said, "What was the punchline? We didn't hear it." I mean, you know.
Yeah. There's
like,
that sometimes.
It's like somebody coming into the bedroom door when you're just about to, you know, climax.
Just ruins it, huh?
You can cut that out, by the way, if you want.
No.
I won't know anything about that, Paul. Anyway,
Dan is the king of inappropriate jokes.
I've made some pretty naughty ones. Like, you haven't edited the video yesterday from the interview, have you?
No, I've not edited, no.
And everything after we said cut is not publishable in any way, shape, or form on any format.
Even having a good laugh though,
because I and Nathan have got quite a similar sense of humour, where it's sort of a bit shocking, you know.
I've got a filthy sense of humour, and over the years, as you may know, Daniel, I've created lots of adult blue tricks as well.
Like the dog's bollocks.
The dog's bollocks, loads of them. There's one out called Tom, Dick and Harry, which is the new one. I've created lots of adult tricks and adult jokes as well. Are my thing.
So, should we stick one of those adult tricks, the performance video at the beginning of the video? Do you think?
Yeah, if you can. I mean, YouTube keep banning them, so if you can find one, I might have to send you one.
Are they that bad?
Some of them, yeah, they're pretty risque. Some of them, but they're there for mates in pubs and clubs and restaurants and for your pals, you know, or the kind of gigs that we all do from time to time.
Yeah, you're not showing it to the bride and groom at a really fancy do.
No.
You know.
No.
But sometimes the thing about magic is when people take themselves too seriously. Obviously, if you perform a trick like that, they're going to find out that you don't take yourself too seriously, and that you like to have a bit of a laugh, and it sort of opens people up to you. And
I've
especially,
never taken myself seriously. I think taking yourself seriously is just a complete waste of time. I have no ego about it. We're all going to die at some stage. There's no point in trying to up yourself, you know, in life. Everybody you meet's got a struggle of some sort, including me. So why not just be kind to each other and have a laugh? Because in 20, 30, 40 years' time, none of us are going to be here anymore.
And it won't matter.
It won't matter, will it? Yeah. And
so I'm going to ask you about something a little bit controversial. I'm not sure if anyone's asked you this before, but and we can cut this out as well, and we can cut out the bit where I said we can cut it out if we leave it in, you know. I was just wondering. I'm just genuinely wondering what you think about this. I've heard some criticism of you, and it's that all Paul's tricks use the Elmsley count, and I've seen you perform, and I know that that's not the case. But I mean, why do you think people say that? I mean, it's not a massive amount of your tricks, is it?
Not at all. I mean, it's. I actually, you know, somebody said that they actually had the gall to say it to my face once, and I said, you know, I published 700 routines over 40 years, and probably 70 of them contain the Elmsley count. Now, the main issue about this is you will never find a layman say, I don't like that trick because you're using the Elmsley count again.
Yeah, that's why I don't understand it.
It doesn't matter.
Because they don't know what it is.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what you do. Whatever methods make the trick work, it's totally immaterial. I mean, you wouldn't say to somebody you're using the double lift too much or you're using the palm too much, because other magicians will probably use the double lift a lot, or the palm, or a pharaoh shuffle, or a bottom deal, whatever it may be. But laymen, they don't know what you're doing, so it doesn't matter what method you use.
Well, yeah, the method is completely immaterial. It's all about the effect and the presentation, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I have no idea why people think it's a point of criticism, because it just seems like a silly point. It'd be like me saying, you know, why do rope magicians keep using rope?
Yeah. Well, why do they keep using the fake scissors? The fake scissors are really grinding me.
Fake scissors and the bloody professor's nightmare.
Yeah, I can't, like, the fibre optics routine is quite cool, but other than that, it's not really my thing, rope magic.
Oh.
I've never performed it myself.
I think sometimes people are just a bit jealous or something, or sometimes people have an axe to grind and they use something else to grind the axe, you know.
Yeah, I think it's to do with people's ego. Like, by saying that all your tricks use the Elmsley count, that's like saying that everything they create doesn't use the Elmsley count. So why don't you come and have a look at what I'm doing? You know.
Well, I tell you, I actually did a little joke on some people. I posted a video a while ago, and I said to people who say I use the Elmsley count, just watch this trick. And I did the routine. It was a packet trick, and it looked like I was doing the Elmsley count, but none of the moves in it were the Elmsley count. So when people say it looked like an Elmsley count, it was an Elmsley count, I said, therein lies the rub, because an Elmsley count should just look like 4 cards being counted, and that's all I was doing. So in other words, I do it very well. It'd be like me holding my hand like that and somebody saying you're palming the card, and I go, no, I'm not.
Yeah. I do. I was talking to this when I've got a spectator who's trying to point out things that they think either rightly or wrongly that I'm doing. Let's say their card is the 2 of clubs. Well, what I'll do is I'll do the world's worst top change in the world. I'll try and make sure they're watching at that point. And then, you know, no, I'm like, no, it's really your card. You know.
That's good. I mean, that's a good way of handling it. And you know, I've done that with magicians before, especially if people are snarky, you know, nastily critical about something, and I think it's unwarranted. You know, I would say to them, look, you know, I won't start picking holes in your act and telling you what you should and shouldn't be doing.
You're a member of the Magic Circle. Are you a member of the Inner Magic Circle or just the Magic Circle?
I'm a member of the AIMC, which is Associate Inner Magic Circle, which is one step below being MIMC.
Right, and I was trying to explain this to Alex before, because there isn't really an equivalent. I mean, I guess the Magic Castle's kind of like that, but not really. I'm trying to explain what that is and why people like to join, and it's sort of like a prestige type of thing, isn't it? Not only is it a magic club, and not only are the lectures there, and not only, you know, quite a lot of high-profile people members of that club.
Yeah.
But it's also something that laymen know about. You know, like people have asked me, he can't tell because he's a Magic of the Limp. He can't tell how his tricks work because he's a member of the Magic Circle. Now, what would you say to someone if they were thinking about trying to join the Magic Circle, and in how they would sort of get in or apply? You know, what?
Well, yeah. I mean, your question went off at a couple of tangents there because the
Yeah.
The Magic Circle. You know, when I wasn't a member of the Magic Circle, so 30 odd years ago, I've always been a member of the Sussex Magic Circle. And sometimes somebody would say, are you a member of the Magic Circle? Then I say, I'm a member of the Sussex Magic Circle. Now, to the layman, it may sound like the Sussex branch of the Magic Circle. It's not, but you know, it's a funny one, this, because I didn't join the Magic Circle for prestige, and I'm not a member because of prestige. I'm not a prestigious type of person. Like I said to you, I'm not competitive, and I'm not, you know, I'm not that kind of a person. I joined because of the club room, the library, meeting up with people, that kind of thing. But if anybody wants to join it, which I highly recommend they do, if they can afford it and they can get to London to go to the club room. I think if you can get to London to go to the club room on a Monday, and you know, enjoy the facilities and what goes with it, you know, go for it. Why not, if you can afford it?
Does it afford you any additional opportunities that you might otherwise not receive?
Not personally, no. No, I mean, I've been invited to all sorts of. I hope this makes sense, but in America, Alex, tell me if this doesn't make sense. But in England, we have like men's clubs, you know, like Rotary clubs or meeting clubs where guys meet. I've always turned them down because I'm not a club person really. I enjoy, you know, I've got a log cabin at the end of the garden here, and if I can sit in there with a good book and a glass of wine, no amount of phone calls from magicians will lure me out to go and meet up and sit around the table doing magic.
Yeah, I don't really think that there are very many clubs that I'm really even aware of in the States. You know, there's like the motorcycle clubs, and then there's, you know, some of the fraternal organizations. But as far as clubs, it's like maybe it's just not a thing in American culture, and if it is, I'm not aware of it.
Well, I think, I mean, in magic-wise, you have in America, you've got two major ones. You've got SAM, the Society of American Magicians, and you've got the IBM, the International Brotherhood of Magicians, and then you have, like as Daniel said, you've got the Magic Castle, the venue to play at if you're into that. 4Fs is a big convention. I've lectured and performed at 4Fs in Batavia, New York, you know, up there, up in the mountains. So I've done that, but I've lost the thread where we're going here, but yeah.
Do you have any tips for the guys at home about handling heckles?
Well, there's a big thing about heckles. If you're getting heckled, you've probably got a bad act, or you're not handling your act well. Because if you are really good at what you do and you're confident and you come on stage, whether it be close up or whether it be on stage, if you're good at what you do, you won't get heckled. Hecklers only appear if they spot a weakness. So if they feel like if there's no energy, or if you are not very good at what you do, hecklers will appear. So the first thing is to work out your act and your pacing and your energy and what you're doing so that you're not going to get heckled in the first place. But if you have heckle stoppers, the trouble is you're kowtowing to a bully, and what a heckler is somebody who wants attention. If you starve them of attention, they won't heckle. So quite frankly, if I was doing close-up magic and somebody at the back was heckling, I would just carry on doing what I do until somebody next door to him said, "Shut up." Because that's what they will do. They don't want to have somebody giving it all this in their ear. They want to enjoy the act. So I'll tell you a funny story. As a magician friend of mine told me this, and I hope you don't mind me telling this on air, as it were. But I heard the best heckle. This is a heckle, not a heckle stopper. It's the best heckle. And it was a comedian was on stage, a famous comedian in England, and he does this act with a cello or a double bass, whatever it may be, and he's sort of doing the old dum 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 dum. Then he's got the bow, and he tells gags between it, and he tells them in a very slow, dry manner. That's his style. It's like a droll. And so he's saying, Oh, I've had a hard life. Everything seems to have gone wrong. Problems at home. And he said, part of his gag is, he says, I went to the doctor and I said to the doctor, I've got all these problems. He said, you're schizophrenic. And this bloke in the audience shouted out, in that case, you can both fuck off.
Yeah, that's a good heckle. I don't think there's much coming back from that.
No coming back from that, is there? When the audience is funnier than you.
I mean, what's kind of funny about that is I used to be schizophrenic.
Oh, really?
What do you mean you used to be?
Yeah, but we're okay now.
You fucking cunt.
It's like my dyslexia. I say I'm KO now.
Yeah. Or dyslexic. So, we'll wrap it up. We'll keep the camera running after, just in case we might have a little conversation afterwards, or whatever. We might find some bits that we chop and put in, so we'll leave it running. But I'm just going to do the outro now. Thanks for coming. We appreciate you coming to spend your time with us. To everybody at home, please can you like, subscribe, do all the things. You can find Paul on his website. Is it paulgordon.net or .com?
.net, yeah.
Yeah, paulgordon.net. You can find tutorials for his tricks. You can buy his packet tricks. You can buy a gazillion books that it's full of gold dust. That's why they
downloads. Freebies. People love free stuff. There's lots of free stuff.
Go there, get some free stuff. It's been an absolutely fantastic guest. Thanks for coming on, Paul, and we hope to have you on again.
Well, bless you. I mean, thank you both very much indeed. It's thank you for asking me, for starters, and that's nice to be. You get to my age and people start forgetting you. They think you're in the old folks' home or something. So thank you both very much. Nice to meet you on air, Alex, and good luck with the horror film. And when it comes to parts, if there's a link to it or whatever, let me know.
All right.
But thank you both indeed very much indeed. I always end. Can I end with a toast?
Sure.
Yeah.
It's a Frank Sinatra had a similar.
I've got
toast.
an empty glass. It's bad luck.
My toast is, may you all live to be 1,000 years old, and the last card trick you ever used is one of mine.
Cheers.
Cheers.